everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I am bringing you another episode of Finishing the Series. Today I am going to talk about two more books, The Exiled Queen, which is the second book in the Seven Realms series by Cinda Williams Chima, and Emerald Isle, which is the fourth book in the Stacy Justice mystery series by Barbra Annino. As a reminder, my set of Finishing the Series videos can be a little bit spoilery because I am talking about books in series, and so mentions of things that may have occurred in previous installments may come up, as well as discussion on specific things that occur in the installment. So just be aware of that going in. Navigational links are down in the description box below in case you are only interested in hearing about one of these books and not the other. So we'll start off with The Exiled Queen. I read the first book in this series, I believe in November of 2019. I was buddy reading it with a couple of friends. I didn't have the best impression of the first book. It was very slow, and I just felt like the things we were reading about weren't necessary in regards to the big picture of what I believe the story arc is going to be. So it was a very slow start. And had I not been buddy reading this with friends, I probably would have DNF'd it. It was that bad of a reading experience for me. I just was waiting for something to happen, and that didn't happen until the last couple chapters of the book. And then suddenly the book was over. And so I had high expectations for this second installment going in because I had already felt like the series was moving forward. But to have it abruptly cut off like that was kind of majorly disappointing to me. That being said, because we finished reading it in November and I wanted to focus on more Christmassy stories in December, we decided to take a month off before reading the next installment. So we started reading this one in January. And again, I had buddy read it with one of the ladies that I was reading the first installment with in November. And I definitely enjoyed this installment more because all of the setup was already complete, and there was no more that was necessary to be told as far as, I guess, where our two main characters are coming from. Things could just get right down to business from the very beginning. And so in this one, we're already following our two main characters proceeding to journey their way to Odin's Ford, which is like a school. And they're traveling separately because in the first book, we do get jumping points of view between Han, who is our male character, and Reza, who is our female character, and they're both in like different places. Like their stories don't really converge at the end of book one. They do converge in book one, but then they break apart again. And so Han is on his way with his friend Dancer, and Reza is on her way with her friend Eamon. And so, again, we're following jumping POVs. It's not necessarily chapter by chapter. There could be a couple chapters where we see Han, and then a chapter where we see Reza. In this book, their storylines do converge again, so we do get to see them together. But it's not like that the entire time. Some of the things that had bothered me in the first installment I thought were going to carry over to this installment because there were some mentions of things. For example, I had a really big problem with how Reza was conducting herself as far as how many trysts she would have. I think you would call them trysts. As far as I know, they're only like make-out sessions, but it seemed like every other page she was talking about making out with somebody else, or you're hearing about how she would have make-out sessions with somebody when the character was introduced. And to me, I don't need to know that. Why is that important information? And at, I believe she's 16, why is she making out with all of these guys? I don't know. I mean, you do you, but for me, it was just like, and there's a little bit of a mention of that at the beginning of this one, because she does encounter one of the guys that we knew she made out with earlier in the previous book, but thankfully that kind of thing didn't continue all the way through. I usually have a big problem with love triangles, and there is one in this book, though I feel like it's not really relevant. Things that happen with one of the men that are involved doesn't really seem like it can go anywhere, so I'm not really seeing him as a viable suitor at this point. But that's probably why the love triangle is not bothering me so much. I do feel like Raisa has had some character development. We're not hearing so much about her love life as we were in the first installment. We're seeing her grow as a human, as a soldier. We're seeing her brain grow. She's learning things, so I really enjoyed that point. Han's also growing. He's growing in his abilities. He's learning things. And he's kind of also learning how to navigate his life in a not so familiar environment. He is an thief. And you're told this in the first installment. In this one, he's going to this school, and he's learning about magic and kind of learning about this new part of his life that he's navigating quite well, I think. He's also being pushed by several walls. You've got the dean of the school kind of wanting him to do things. There's another character that's involved that's quite fishy. There are things happening, though you're not really sure what. I'm very interested to know more about this other character. You've got the characters that were after him from the previous installment also involved and also going to this school. And you're seeing him navigate all of that. It's quite interesting to see how he goes about doing that. Also with the school element, we see them going to classes and learning things, interacting with teachers and such. And so that, I don't know if it's just because it's like a school environment, kind of reminiscent of a Harry Potter in a way, or even a Percy Jackson kind of. It just made it a little bit more interesting. They weren't out on the streets as much. The journey portion of this story, getting to the school, wasn't as interesting. And I'm still not quite sure why we're introduced to things that happened during the journey. I feel like at least one of the things that happened during Han's journey is going to come up as something important later, but maybe not. I don't know. I just have a feeling, because why were we told that happened if it wasn't important? But I'm really glad that I enjoyed this installment more than I did the first one. I'm definitely excited to get into the third installment. but we will be taking a break until April. This one, again, though, stops right when things are getting going. Something has occurred at the very end of this installment, and so trying to figure out what to do next is kind of where we leave off with our characters. And so yeah, I'm kind of invested in this story now, and I'm really glad that this installment was a better experience for me than the previous one. So now let's talk about Emerald Isle, which is the fourth book in the Stacy Justice mystery series by Barbra Annino. I have been borrowing this series from Kindle Unlimited via ebook and audiobook. So the audiobook also comes with the subscription. I had not so great experiences with the narration from the beginning of this series, but as the series has gone on, the narrator has gotten better and better and better, and I think that so far this has been the best delivery of the story that I have listened to from this narrator. This particular installment was also my favorite of the installments in this series so far. The first three installments deal more with real life and a little bit of magic. Stacy Justice is a witch. If you are unaware of what this series is about, she is a reporter who was reluctant to embrace her witchiness. Her grandmother and her great aunts are all witches that practice quite regularly. And something happened in her past where she kind of turned away from the craft. And so in these stories, she's kind of slowly coming back to it. By this installment, she has embraced it fully. We start off in the beginning of this book. It's her 29th birthday. And apparently in your 30th year, you're supposed to come into power. And there's a little bit of a debate about whether or not this is her 30th year, because technically it's her 29th birthday, but they think it's her 30th year alive. And so there's kind of a question as to whether or not she's going to come into her powers this year. We're also getting more of a storyline as far as trying to get her confirmed as the Seeker with the council. And so there's this council of witches, and they're in Ireland, and about every 100 years there's a new Seeker. There are also other important people, but Stacy's supposedly the Seeker, or at least her grandmother believes so and has believed so since Stacy was born. But she hasn't been confirmed, and nobody really knows other than her grandmother and her aunts that she kind of stepped away from the craft for a very long time. So they're trying to get her confirmed as the Seeker, but her grandmother's enemy of life, I guess you could say, believes that her grandson is supposed to be the next Seeker. So there is a question of that. And in the midst of all of this, an artifact goes missing, and it's quite important. And so the council wants Stacy to find this artifact, and if she does, they will confirm her as the Seeker. And to make things a little bit more interesting, not only will they confirm her as the Seeker, but they will also release her mother. In a previous installment, you find out that her mother is kind of locked up because of something that she had done to protect Stacy many, many years ago. And so getting her mother released has been something high on Stacy's priority list for a while, as well as her grandmother's. And so this opportunity is very enticing for Stacy. So throughout this book, we follow Stacy trying to get confirmed as the Seeker. She goes to Ireland. There are a few things that happen with some deities, and there's much more magic, and obviously she's also looking for this artifact with her grandmother and her aunts in tow. So I think I had mentioned in a previous installment of finishing the series, when I talked about the third book, that I was really feeling like I was missing something from this series, and that I usually go into paranormal series looking for storylines that are more paranormal in nature. However, up until the third book, we're dealing with more real life situations, real life murders, not real anything to do with magic besides a spell here and there, maybe some little rituals or superstitions, and mostly it's just had to do with real life stuff, murders that have nothing to do with magic. And so this particular installment was interesting to me because it didn't deal with real life murder. It was more like a paranormal mystery. There's a quest, and there was much more magic. She gets pulled into a realm and talks with some deities. She deals with a ghost, a specter. She also sees kind of a spirit that's kind of helping to guide her. And so this one felt a lot more paranormal in nature, which is what I was looking for from this series. So I really enjoyed that. It happens in Ireland, and I really enjoyed that as well. The audiobook does provide Irish accents, and that is always pleasing to my ear. And yeah, I really enjoyed this installment, much more than I enjoyed the previous ones. I'm definitely interested to see where this story goes, though. I believe there's 2 more installments in this series, and now that we've gotten more of a paranormal take on things going on, I'm wondering if we're going to go back to real life murder situations, or if it's going to include more of a paranormal twist on things. That being said, I'm not jumping right into the 5th installment. I am going to take a little bit of a break. I'll probably be picking up the 5th installment in March for March Mystery Madness, and there is a reason for that, but I'm not going to tell you at this time because it's still something that's up in the air for me. But I have a reason for waiting to pick up the 5th installment on this one, and I will let you know what that is a little later, closer to when I do pick it up. But yeah, I'm very happy that I enjoyed this one more. I was kind of feeling a little run down about this series, just because I felt like something was missing. I wasn't really interested in the things that I was being presented, but this book really turned it around for me, and I'm really excited to see where things go in the upcoming installments. So yeah, I think this one is a little bit shorter than the rest of the Finishing the Series installments that I've put out for you. Let me know if you've read either of these series and what you think of it. I did mention March Mystery Madness. Announcements for that should be coming up soon, so keep an eye out. Links to our Goodreads group and the Twitter is down in the description box below in case you are interested in participating or would like to know when the announcements start rolling out for that. And that's all I've got for you today. I hope you're all doing great, and until next time, take care, and smile always. Bye!